Z are wrong. We love you and politics of
But America,
and love are right.
we are not going back.
All right. In terms of the job sector,
Yes.
what do you feel like is a top priority in terms of where we'll see the biggest impact? Is it manufacturing, aerospace, which you kind of touched on a little bit, biotech?
Workforce development is very important. I think you would see or will see more Republicans in the future make that one of their signature themes or platform ideas. We need a developed workforce, and manufacturing is important. But even with manufacturing in Alabama, you have to make sure that, as we point out earlier, that taxes are not burdening them in such a way that they cannot produce competitively in Alabama. We have to, again, I keep saying, have that skill set. We don't have the skill set to meet the jobs that are here. We have to make sure that they have access to places where they can export whatever they produce at the end of the assembly line, but at the same time have suppliers, a supply chain that is not heavily burdened within the state as well. So manufacturing is a top sector. Even though you're seeing NASA in North Alabama, you're not going to see a great aerospace, I should say, swelling of employees, right? Compared to manufacturing. Manufacturing is mainly what that's going to be. You are seeing, like, as it relates to health and human services, believe it or not, with DOGE cuts, with some of the recent slashing of jobs that we've seen, it's already impacted Alabama. So we have to be very careful to make sure we adjust, here, what we do relative to manufacturing and even healthcare. Believe it or not, Jason, 318,000 women have lost their jobs in the last 3 months, African American. And that affected GDP by about $37 billion. Okay. That is, I'm shifting the jobs for just a second. That is only Department of Education and Health and Human Services. Just that slashing alone of 318,000 jobs put more people in an entrepreneur sector, but it's no guarantee that they're getting the same revenues coming into their home, right? Same income. What did that do for Alabama? That affected our GDP by about 300 million already. And so it's not just about manufacturing, aerospace, hotel, restaurant, tourism. It's about, once we see these growths in jobs, are there any dangerous policies that are being pushed at the federal level that can come back to bite us at the state level? And that's what we've seen lately. We've seen, again, a slashing of the primarily women's labor force in such a way that it's unbelievable. Listen to this. For every 1% drop in the women's labor force, you're looking at a difference of $147 billion in terms of GDP hit to the nation. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to be very careful when we start talking about jobs, that we have jobs that aren't just created overnight and they go away. We need jobs that are going to be here for a while. So going back to manufacturing, I think whenever we have new businesses that come to Alabama, let's say a data center, let's make sure we employ people that live in that county. Let's make sure we're employing Alabamians. When you have I'm going to go on the military side, BRAC, right?
Yeah.
When you have base realignment or even a closure, let's make sure when you bring people into Huntsville, when you bring in a whole new department, when you bring in or relocate a branch of service or whatever it may be, let's make sure we try to first employ people that support them who are right here in Alabama. When we make changes, when we realign, when we close in other states and we bring things to Alabama like a base, or when we bring new jobs in, but we import people from different states, it might help Alabama a little while. We're trying to offer them what we call tax offerings or incentives. We might be offering them something along the lines of a tax credit for being here so many years. Some people enjoy the tax exemptions for a while, and then when those run out, they pick up and they relocate.
Yeah. So
we need people who are going to be here for the long haul. And it goes back, it's circular to what I talked about earlier with the schools, like we mentioned Baldwin County, the faculty student ratio, the dollars being restricted for education, the education trust fund, because guess what? When new businesses come in, and let's just say they bring new people, and their children are in the school district, they don't want their kids in a failing school district. And if their kids are enrolled, like Tuscaloosa, in a place and it's just burden, it's bulging, and they know their kids are going to fall behind, they're not going to be here that long. They're going to say, well, I'm going to take another job someplace else where I can go and my kids can get the education they need. So when we think about manufacturing jobs coming in, we need to think about, again, the school system that's near the manufacturing job. If we're not thinking in terms of both at the same time, it's not an either or, it's not a multiple choice. We have to think about these things in terms of synergy, right? They're all one big component, many components working together for the greater good. So this is why we need leaders, a governor who will embrace, focus on education, focus on job growth at the same time.
We also have a Hyundai plant in Montgomery.
We do.
Like, what if Alabama's had suffered the raid that Georgia's had? You know, what would that have done to our state? And the fact that, you know, I don't see Georgia's governor or any of their political leaders really, except for, you know, the two senators out of, I guess, both are out of
Ossoff and Warnock.
Yeah,
right.
they both have the Atlanta.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Other than those two gentlemen who, you know, are Democrats speaking out against this stuff, it's just like, well, it's not affecting us. You know, just it goes down to that whole just simple, I think, brush off. But man, what if?
What if? Well, you know what? You probably heard of Keisha Lance Bottoms. I think she's running for governor in Georgia.
Love her.
And you have another person, the former lieutenant governor, who was a Republican, who is now a Democrat. He's going to run for governor, whether you like him or not. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to salute a Republican governor. Brian Kemp, believe it or not, has expanded Medicaid partially to people who are at the 100% or above poverty level. And just that small partial expansion, not even a full expansion, is helping people out. So I think they've come to the conclusion that even if it's not the whole, you know, expansion, just doing some can help their state do better. And we see that Georgia is doing well in many areas compared to Alabama. That's a southern state with a Republican governor that said we want change, and obviously it's happening.
Well, let's talk about just kind of continuing on with like Georgia and talk about the lottery. I know Tennessee's is more of an educational lottery. I'm not sure about Georgia's.
Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, right.
What's our hang up with this lottery thing? And how much of an impact do you think that would make on our economy?
Oh, believe it or not, some of the, and I'm going to be conservative, some of the more conservative estimates have put us in the high hundreds of millions, if not billion, at the lowest level. So again, if you could bring in, let's just say, $1 billion to our state with just a lottery, why wouldn't you pick up on that? Especially, as I said earlier, when the sugar high is over and our revenue streams are drying up, why wouldn't you do that? People are going to spend their money the way they want to spend their money. I mean, you could tell them what's good, what's bad, what can happen to their families if they do the wrong thing. Let's let the people decide. Let's make it an issue for Alabamans to decide if they want a lottery, and then let's move forward with that lottery, knowing a lot of people do. $1 billion of revenue would help Alabama tremendously.
I mean, maybe if that was the case, maybe we could follow Florida and Tennessee in terms of state income tax.
Absolutely. Now think about that. Even though we're talking about $10 billion for the Educational Trust Fund, the general fund is only around $3 billion. You could actually bring in $1 billion, taking it from 3 to 4. You can do the math real fast. That would change Alabama overnight. Alabama would talking about night and day, another $1 billion in the general fund. That would help us out. So that's what we need. We need, again, new revenue streams for our state.
Well, I think, you know, the founding fathers, to me, you know, I think they did a lot of smart things and made a lot of smart decisions, but that separation of church and state, we're seeing that dissolve. We're seeing this, you know, Christian nationalist, and with you having, you know, a background as a pastor. I don't know if you still actively pastor a church.
I do. I pastor a 165-year-old church in North Alabama, 5-hour round trip every time I go to my office there. And as a non-denominational presiding bishop, oversee many churches around the world, non-denominational manner. And I do oversee even denominational churches as well. So I do wear multiple hats in that role. But to your point, yes, sir, people have used religion to do a lot. And if I could be very honest, religion was used to justify slavery.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very careful when you talk about trying to legislate morality or trying to use your faith in a negative way to control people. That's what causes a society to fail. That's what causes people to feel like they're not inclusive. Now, I'm not going to go biblical on anybody today, but I just want everybody to understand, especially for Republicans who may be listening to me, I have very strong values and beliefs, but my beliefs lead to me treating people equally, fairly, operating like Jesus with compassion. I think what we're seeing right now, even out of the legislature, is something totally different. I use the polar opposites of what I call hate on one side to hopefulness on the other. That's what we need to see more of. Less hate, more hope that our state can do better.
Yeah. And so we did an episode, I think it was like 2 episodes ago, just kind of been hinting since we started on this journey after the 2024 election about how, I've just always heard that there has been this very coordinated effort from like the 60s or 70s to demonize the left, to demonize liberals. I can just remember as a child, when bad things would happen in California, I would hear, adults say, well, they brought that on themselves by, opening their arms to gay people or whatever it is.
Right.
They're just a hedonistic, paganistic society.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And God is one day, there will be a major earthquake, just wipes California off the map.
Right.
And I actually did some research for this
Did
episode.
you? Did you?
This episode we did. And I was like, I want to get to the bottom of this. And so it turns out that you've got very wealthy people who very much benefit from a class system, who saw an opportunity to have a great partnership with the evangelicals in their community. Like, all right, you want more churches, you want more of this, you want more of that. We want, less taxes. We want this, we want that. And it's absolutely the case. And we're seeing it kind of the culmination of it right now.
Absolutely.
Where we are right now in terms of the culture wars, the division, is not an overnight thing. It started in the civil rights movement.
Absolutely. You're so right. You've done your homework for sure.
Well, there you go.
Originally, and I'm not going to argue, right now about our history, but long story short, there was an intentional desire that the state did not support a specific type of religion. So when we talk about state and church, that was put in place to make sure that the United States did not favor one religion over another.
Yeah.
Right. But to your point, people have used that religious platform to come along and say what they want done to support their own interests. I know I'm way off the grid and the message here, what we articulated by me and my platform, but I want to tell you who that really hurts the most. It hurts our 18 to 29-year-olds who are looking at the church and they're seeing straight through the games that are being played.
Yeah.
And they're saying, why would I want to be a part of an organized religion, of a faith, of a group of people who say one thing and do something totally different? There's a difference between the biblical text and biblical character. You can quote scripture all day long and use scripture for the wrong reasons, but your character needs to reflect that you understand the scripture. And that's what I think has happened a lot. And we may not see it immediately, but go to Europe. You'll see where a lot of churches are now just museums.
Yeah.
And it's happening in the United States. People are getting tired of certain people being in office saying that they're doing things for religious reasons and it hurts their friends. And all of a sudden they say, I don't think I want to be a part of that. One of the main reasons why you don't hear me talking a lot about my positions in churches, so to speak, it's not because I'm afraid to talk about God. It's not because I'm afraid to talk about Jesus. I mean, everybody knows what I do. I recognize when I walk into a room that there are some people who are hurt in the church. And I want to be careful to make sure they don't see me as a person who hurt them, but somebody who can help them. We need more legislators who are servant leaders, who don't come in and say, I want to run you off. But think about what Jesus did. He ate with publicans and sinners. Does not say all of them got saved, sanctified, Holy Ghost filled, fire baptized, set up a church right there in their neighborhood. It says he ate with publicans and sinners, right? We know good things happen, but it was left right there. Jesus spent time with the woman who was caught in adultery. Asked basically if anyone who had never engaged in something bad or was without sin to cast the first stone, and immediately his audience was cleared out, right? If we start to really look at the biblical character and not just quote the biblical text, I think you would see more people inviting others to become Alabamians. And maybe even church pews might get filled up again. So I just wanted to throw that out again, not to get deep and religious, but I want people to understand that there are some people out there who don't want anything to do with church because they were hurt in the church. And so we just have to be very careful how we present religion to people.
Yeah, I mean, there's families who don't want to have babies.
Because of that.
Yeah.
We're talking about IVF being threatened. You're talking about an embryo being considered a child. You're talking about religious beliefs stopping people from IVF. Families, we talk about family, faith, and freedom, all these wonderful words, right? I believe in it. But when your faith has cut off people's freedom to have a family, you have to ask yourself now, what's good about that? You have an excellent candidate right now who's trying to get on the Supreme Court of Alabama, who benefited from IVF.
Ashley Dunham.
Ashley Dunham is a remarkable candidate.
We've had her on.
Oh, good. Didn't say I don't have to say anything about her. But we travel the state sometime together, and I hope more people hear her message. But when you hear what people are really struggling with, when you see the journey she had to go out of state to have a child that's living in state, when you see the number of people that she has to practice law to protect in state, who are out of state, even out of the country, you get to understand we use these words, but let's really talk about what they mean. Freedoms should not be taken away from people because of somebody's faith. We have to work together to build families in Alabama. I can talk faith, family, and freedom all day long, but we just need to talk about it in context.
When I listen to you speak, and I'm and taking in this information on social media clips and TikTok clips and things like that, I see a lot of similarities in between your message and I hope I don't mess this wrong, but the candidate who's running for Senate out of Texas, Talarico.
Okay.
Two very profound statements, two TikTok videos that I saw this weekend. One, he was saying that Christianity is not about how much you love Jesus or God, or it's less about that. It's more about how much you love Judas.
The test of Christianity is not do you love Jesus, because Jesus is pretty lovable. The test is do you love Judas? I mean, that is radical.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key to saving this whole American experiment.
Like that, I was like, whoa.
Wow.
But then I'm speaking in a church service, just talking about the contradictions of who Jesus was, how he lived his life versus what's happening today. And one of them was like healthcare. How would Jesus feel about somebody having to set up a GoFundMe page to pay for their own healthcare?
Absolutely.
It's just all these, it was just bullet point after bullet point after bullet point, just of these massive contradictions as it relates to religion in the state of our United States of America.
And I think candidates should not be afraid to talk about these issues with people who believe that. So I talk to Republicans all the time who probably think that I'm a demon because I'm a Democrat, but when they hear me quoting scripture and verse and offering what we call eisegesis or exegesis of the text or the passage and willingly do what you just did, WWJD, what would Jesus do?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they come and say, you know what, you're right. I don't brag about how many people I've baptized, how many people I've led to Christ. I don't even keep a tally of how many people I've married at the altar together and all those kind of things. I'm just doing the work. And that's what I want to do in Alabama. Some people, why would you want to be? I want to work. I want to help Alabama do better.
Hey, fellow Blue Dots, don't forget you can find all of our episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button and we would love a review. Okay, now back to the episode.
Welcome back, everybody. I just want to recap from the point we were making in the prior segment about AI. I mean, AI is not on the side of the current administration, I will tell you that.
Oh, definitely
Or
not. No, sir.
any historical issues that we've ever faced. It's like, that would be such, because it takes a lot. If you were just going to, without AI, it would take hours, days, weeks, months to, go back in time from civil rights to now to educate yourself on where we've been and how far we've come and how far we have to go.
Absolutely.
So I just love that. And I just think, gosh, I mean, everybody has that ability on their smartphone.
They do.
To ask AI a question.
You can ask a specific question. You can say something like, what could a city council person in Pelham, Alabama do to address homelessness or veterans who are without health care in 2026?
Yeah.
And it will think for a moment, gather data, and then cite for you studies, numbers, and here's what you can do. So yeah, AI is something people are afraid of, but I would encourage people to look at the sources, look at the data, because some of it might not be necessarily true, but it leans towards the policies I'm talking about right now.
Well, I asked AI, I wanted to know, you had, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, you had, a lot of people saying different things on one side. On the left, it was like, he was full of hate. He brought this on himself. So I just asked AI that question. And AI told me, like, really, there wasn't a lot that he said that was overly hateful. Very polarizing, maybe. But I've asked AI all kinds of questions to help me better understand an argument. Sadly, I asked it to identify the Republican leaders that after Charlie's assassination came out with messages of unity, and there were 0 in the state of Alabama, 0 Republicans, and nationally there was Mike Pence. Yeah. And I was thinking to myself, when and how? I just never would have thought of myself as a Mike Pence fan. All right.
Bernie Sanders did give a good response. He's an independent.
Yeah, that's true.
And he did say something along the lines that he and Mr. Kirk practically disagreed on everything, but he went about explaining that political violence is wrong and we should never, obviously do what was done. So, yeah, I think we have to be willing to disagree, but all at the same time, respect one another in that disagreement. Other cultures, other nations that I travel to, they don't have a problem with people disagreeing with them. For some reason here, though, we have a problem. But to your point, you can look at the same individual from 2 different perspectives. And again, I'm bringing a lot of religion, I guess, today for different reasons. But you can just look at the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They all present a totally different Jesus to some degree. They present a king, a servant, a son of God, a son of man, right? It all depends on which angle you look at somebody from. So if your lenses are as a Democrat looking at Charlie Kirk, it will be different from the lenses of a Republican looking at Charlie Kirk. So we have to understand we are all looking at people from different mountain peaks, from different valleys, from different perspectives, but let's appreciate what we see. You can't just jump to the wrong conclusions. Right. Some are, I know we have Auburn fans here, but there's depending on which way you look at an elephant, which way you look at a tiger, which way you look at a lion. I mean, you can see different things depending on what you're touching, and so we have to recognize as people, some people may be touching the fur, some people may be touching the tusk, some people might touch the foot. Let's appreciate the fact that we're different and not just come to the conclusions that just because somebody said this, they're bad, or did that they're good. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you can find something you love in your enemy and something you hate in your best friend or people you love. So we're all different people. We have different views and different backgrounds, but we should never, ever resort to violence whenever we come to a point of impasse.
Could not agree more. And I've got to give just quick kudos to Governor Cox in Arizona. I was, saying like no Republican leaders were preaching unity, but he certainly was one.
And Mike Pence, you pointed out, I mean, even after the January 6th, I don't get a chance to give the former Indiana governor and the vice president of the United States props, but, think of the courage he had to have.
Oh my gosh.
To stand up to a person he adored and would have, done practically anything he told them to do. So he came under a lot of fire because of that. And I'm sure he will have a hard time putting his name on certain ballots in the future.
And his family will suffer.
His family will
collaterally,
suffer.
It's
Absolutely. But again, all of us, you've done it, I've done it. We have to come to a point within ourselves where we say, you know what, I'm doing this for the people. This is not about my interest, it's about them. So I salute Vice President Pence for that courage, even facing assassination attempts on January 6th.
Yeah.
People wanted to hang him, right, or behead him. It's a lot. It's sad in our nation that when we disagree, we want to go all the way to the opposite side and say, "Oh, just cancel you, just kill you." That's not the way it should be.
couldn't agree more. All right. First question in our lightning round is first place you would visit as governor that most candidates skip.
First place that I would go that most candidates skip. I'm always talking about Lowndes County
Okay.
and how they have 25,000 people experiencing septic crisis.
Wow.
Yeah, their septic tanks aren't connected or aren't there in many cases. So it was near lunchtime for some people, dinner time for others. But long story short, when they flush a toilet,
Yeah, where does it go?
backyard. That's where it goes. And so when we talk about air quality, water quality, we talk about protecting our environment. I mean, some people have built new homes in 1986 and still don't have access to septic tanks or hooked into a septic system. So I know it's lightning round, but I think you have to visit places like those.
Yeah, well, putting you on the spot, that was a pretty darn good answer. But I think, we could easily get on a 45-minute segment tangent about the environment, but it's one of those things like we all breathe the same air.
Same air. Yeah.
Had a young man who's running in District 21, Huntsville area, and he made a great point on our podcast. He's like, it's not so much left and right, it's top and bottom.
Yeah, that's it.
That's where the separation is really happening.
It is.
And if people could be more curious and even use tools like AI, they would probably see that.
Absolutely.
All right, one state you'll copy for healthcare and one for education, and why, and they could be the same state.
I'm going to go left and right.
Okay.
And by left and right, geographically, I mentioned Georgia earlier, Brian Kemp introducing a partial expansion of Medicaid. I think that was a brave step, whether Democrats or Republicans did it, whether they did together. Just exploring that idea helps. Now, there's some flaws with it. They found out that just the paperwork involved with verifying whether or not someone's really working or active, that has superseded the cost of what they're trying to do. So they're going to have to rethink that. But it takes trial and error like that. So I salute them for the healthcare side of it. Mississippi, another one, I talked about earlier, they were at the bottom a whole lot for educational reasons, but because of changes, they're now quickly moving towards the top. So that's two southern states at that, left and right, who have demonstrated that continuous improvement works, trial and error works. You have to try and you can do better.
Love it. All right, next one. A belief your base won't love, but Alabama needs to hear.
Ooh, wow. A belief your base doesn't love, but Alabama needs to hear. They won't love it, but I can't say they won't love it, but I believe a common misconception is that Alabama is a red state. I said already, I believe it's a blue state.
That's probably one of my favorite points you've made this whole episode.
Yeah. I think that one, nobody wants to believe that. They think I'm telling the untruth, but then I have to go and prove it. So yeah, it's true. We just need to get out and vote.
Well, and we saw what happened with this ABC Jimmy Kimmel situation.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
my wife, she doesn't watch the news. She's just made this after the election. She's like, I'm going in this bubble. It may not be the right thing to do, but for my sanity and for my kids, it's what I got to do.
Absolutely.
Got to turn off the news and all that stuff.
You do.
But she loves to watch the Today Show, and you just can't get away from it.
You can't.
And so she was, recently making the point. She's like, wow, just the power that we have, that we feel powerless, but the power we do have. And if we as a nation, but more specifically today as Alabamians, rose up, we could make this happen.
We can make it happen. A lot I can say about that one. I agree. That goes back to top and bottom again.
Yeah.
Because whether you're talking about the FCC, whether you're talking about the executive branch of the government, you're talking about ABC or even Disney, a parent company, you're talking about the idea that it's all about money. It's all about control. It's all about stations and what they're hearing, what they're seeing, or whether or not you need this approval to go to the next phase of your expansion. this is that top and bottom again. What does the 1% want versus what we're in? But at the end of the day, our First Amendment right. I mean, the framers had a interesting perspective. They did not put everything we have on stone. Now, some would argue it was put in blood, right? But in reality, Article 5, or having the ability to tweak and change things as we need to, they understood we're not a perfect nation, perfect experiment, perfect nation that's going to do everything right. There are going to be sometimes some things need to change. Some things need to be tweaked a little bit. So I think this really tested people's belief of, some of the things you mentioned, preamble, constitution, articles, now people become more aware of what we talked about Second Amendment a lot, but what First Amendment is like. Mm-hmm. What freedom of speech means. I may not like what a comedian says at night, but do I have a right to cut him off or her off because I don't agree? You have to really think about these things at a larger level, and that's what young people are really concerned about,
Well, and I hope, I wish a lot more people would watch programs like 60 Minutes.
Absolutely.
Last night they had Dana White on, who's like #1 Trump fan. They're buddies. They hang out together. They have dinner. But to hear him say, hear him come out and so profoundly protect free speech to the extent where he was defending people who have recently lost their jobs. Mm-hmm. Gosh, they're just little ways we can find common ground.
Absolutely.
He probably disagreed with 90% of what we've said today. But
absolutely.
Man, we're in full agreement on that.
Absolutely.
And that's a start.
Absolutely.
All right, you're in luck here. This is your last question. One promise you'll make today that we can replay in a year and say, like, he wasn't just blowing smoke. He was for real.
That I'm someone who wants to put Alabama first, that I'll put Alabama over my party, that it's about people over politics. I think if you go back and look at this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, even 50, you'll see that I practice what I preach. I love the phrase by St. Francis of Assisi. It's my favorite quote. Preach the gospel and if necessary, use words.
I love that one.
Same here with Alabama. I think you're going to find that I'm going to be a governor that will work hard. I could care less about being on television, in front of cameras. I don't care what they say about me in terms of the history books. My thing is, when I lay my head down every night for those 4 years, have I put every Alabamian first? And if I haven't, then I don't need to be there. So that's what I'm about, just making sure, as I started the segment, every Alabamian has a shot at the American dream.
As opposed to somebody who maybe is looking at it from the perspective of, hey, I won a national championship, I was a senator, I was a governor, from a legacy, personal legacy standpoint.
Right.
I think if people are just wondering what a servant leader is, mm-hmm. That's somebody, you're putting your state above yourself.
Absolutely.
And you're doing it not through action.
Absolutely. So I wrote some books, since you brought up the phrase. Robert Greenleaf coined the phrase servant leadership, if I'm not mistaken. But long story short, dark leadership is a type of leadership that takes advantage of followers for personal gain. Mm. So you can be a Pyrrhic victor, and about the Pyrrhic wars, or sometimes people do anything they can to fight to say, I won. They will throw people under the bus to say I won. They will move the goalpost to say I won. They will put more seconds on the clock or take seconds off. No pun intended, but with the games that may not happen last night. But but
I don't know how you have time to keep up with that.
I don't. You fall asleep with an AirPod in your ear or something. But long story short, I'm just making the point that we have to be people who don't say we engage in deviant behavior just to say I won. Mm. And right now, a lot of games are being played with the lives of Alabamians at stake. And so I'm not trying to be governor because it's a notch on my belt or it's part of my bucket list or something I want. I'm not even doing it because I think I want to make history. I believe I've been called to do this. I believe everything I've done up to this point has prepared me for this moment. And at the end of the day, I hope that Republican men, women, libertarian men and women, independent men and women, Democrat men and women will say, you know what? I don't agree with everything Will says, but I believe Will's the one that needs to sit in the chair. I know some people say to me, you know what, Will, I've never voted blue, but I'm voting for you. I want to hear more people say that. And I want them to say at the end of the day, at the end of the first year, he meant what he said. It may have cost him politically. He may not have a lot of friends on the left who think that he's been as far left as he can be, or friends on the right that think that he's as far to the left as he can be to the right, or even close to center. But at the end of the day, he really did put Alabama first. Some people right now say, you know what, I don't know if that man's a Democrat or Republican, but I know I like him. I love him. That's what we want to be. You know, yeah, parties get us where we are. We don't forget who we are, how we got here. We don't turn around and throw our parties under the bus. But again, when you get elected, this is not for 50%. This is for 100%. And so I'm going to listen to Alabamians every day. If I have to call a legislative session to get legislators to listen to people and what they decide before they vote, I'm going to do that. If I have to bring more sunshine, more transparency, put more things out so people can see it, so be it. I don't believe, and I'm getting a lot of trouble now, that we need to, in Alabama, cradle of civil rights, or place where a lot of history is made relative to what we see now, advancements in certain areas, particularly even what's happened in Birmingham, Montgomery, Selma. I don't believe we need to focus on tearing down every monument because of what we had in the past, but let's look at where we are now. And let's say that's part of our history. That made us who we are today. But we're at an inflection point, a watershed moment. We're now going to move forward and do new things that show that in this experiment, just like our nation that made us who we are, we're better. And we can move our state forward. That's what I want people to be about in our state.
Oh, that is a strong ending. All right. How can people, if they want to learn more about your campaign, get involved? You got any advice for them there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They go to drwillboyd.com. They can join me. If they forget that, willboydforgovernor.com gets to me. But if they just Google my name, Will Boyd, in Alabama, they'll find the website. There's a volunteer area there. They can select the join us area, of course. No candidate, unless they have millions of dollars, going to sit here and say they don't need help money, right? But if they could donate, I really would appreciate it. I'm not even in it about the money, because at the end of the day, millions are important, but I don't owe anybody perspective. You know, I'm not beholden to anyone.
Right.
No special interest that I owe. But long story short, joining us to volunteer with help. We want people in every precinct, every county, every congressional district, every part of the state. And I invite Republicans, I'm going to say this clearly, right now as a Democrat, I want Republicans, Independents, Libertarians, Green Party, whatever you are, Constitutional Party, please just check me out. Look at what I believe first, before you donate, before you hit the join me button or join us button. Look at my platform, and don't just say because Will's a Democrat that he can't help the state. And when you look at it, if you have any questions, call me, write me. You probably, the time I've been sitting here, I can't tell you how many emails have come in.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
We have a phone system, a team set up just to answer phones, because phone calls come in 24/7. But call me. I'm going to sound like Alexander Shannara now. Call me, Alabama. But seriously, I don't have the billboards he has, but call me, Alabama. I do want you to get involved, and we can do this together.
Love it. Thank you so much for making
thank
time.
you
I really
so
appreciate
much.
This
I
has been
appreciate
so
it.
good.
No, it's been good for me. Thank you.
Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and we support you.
But America